Hey guys, welcome back to Just Fixing Garage. I'm Justin. Behind me we have Matt's 2003 Dodge Durango with a 4.7 four-wheel drive. He's experiencing some humming noises while he's driving, especially when he turns to the left, it gets louder. We had looked at this before and it seemed like the wheel bearing was bad, and with the diagnosis of how he's driving it and making more noise when he turns left, the weight from the car shifts to the right and puts more weight on the wheel bearing. So we're pretty confident we have a bad wheel bearing on this front right. But today we're going to go in there, we're going to take the wheel off, undo the axle nut, and take off what we need to replace that wheel bearing. On this one, being four-wheel drive, it is a bolt-in. I believe it has ABS, so we'll have to unplug that as well, get that out of the way. But regardless, if you have to do your front left one, it's the same job as the front right. So just follow along if you'd like some help on this and save you some money and do it yourself. So let's get started. All right guys, so depending on if you have an impact or not, one of the first steps we're going to need to do is get the wheel off, but also if you don't have an impact and you have to break this off with a breaker bar, you're probably going to have to take the wheel off, get your cotter pin out of your axle nut, out of your CV axle and get that out, lower the car back to the ground, put the wheel on to break this loose. You can use different bars to try to hold it, but if you don't have an impact and you're trying to use your breaker bar with your axle nut, it's going to be very difficult. Impacts don't matter, you can have it in the air, but and that's how I'm going to do it. But otherwise, again, if you do it on the ground, you may have to pop the middle cap out of your rim, put it back on, lower it to the ground to loosen it, which I'm not doing. So next up, I'm just going to loosen this axle nut. Then I'm going to work my way to take the brake and caliper bolts off. I'm going to end up taking off everything brake related and just hang the caliper up to the side so that I can expose my 3 bolts back here, which should be pretty accessible. So follow along, I'm going to get to that, and we can work from there. I do know that with these brakes, I think it uses Allen keys or Allen size sockets, so if you don't have that, you may have to pick up a set. But otherwise, I'm just going to blow through this. This is pretty simple. If you don't know how to do brakes, you're probably not going to do your CV axle, but just a few bolts we'll take out, and then we'll work our way through. So follow along. Alright guys, you saw me take everything off. Let me tell you the sizes. The axle nut is going to be a 32 millimeter. If you don't have axle nut sockets like I do, go rent this thing from AutoZone or Advance for free. Well, you pay for it, then you get your money back. The caliper to the bracket is held in with size 6 millimeter Allen key or hex key, whatever they want to call it. So you're going to need to get that out. If you don't have a set, go buy one. And then I use the 21 millimeter to get the caliper bracket off of the spindle. And that's going to expose most of what I need here, and I'll be able to turn this left and right to do what I need to do. I'm only able to turn this because my other wheel is off the ground. So like other people might not, if you have your wheel on the ground over there, it's going to be hard to turn this, but you're going to want to be able to turn it to get in there. So now that this is exposed, I'm going to take a look at the 3 bolts behind here and try to break those loose. And you also want to see, is your axle nut free from the hub? Or axle, free from there, all your splines and such. In my case, it is. If it wasn't, I'd probably get an air hammer or a chisel and hit right in the middle. Be careful hitting the sides. You don't want to booger up the threads or that nut will never go back on. You'll be replacing the CV axle as well. So I'm going to get in here and check what size these are. I'll let you know. And maybe I'll have Matt hold the camera in a way where you can see in here a little better. But otherwise, let me get the sizing in there. Try to get an impact and we'll get this broken loose. It looks like I'm also going to have to break loose the ABS sensor here. So let me see what size that is. I almost forgot about that. I would have noticed once I started breaking it loose, but we've got an ABS sensor in there. Let me show you. So this sensor right here, it's gonna have to be taken out. It looks like it's a single bolt, another Allen key. I'll tell you what size in a minute. Actually, I wonder if it's the same size as the brake. Probably not, no, smaller. Okay, I'll get that out, I'll tell you what size. You gotta be careful you don't break them. If you do, they're like 15, 20 bucks, so that's your worst case scenario. So let's move forward. I'll get that out so it's out of the way, and we'll keep going. All right, guys, let me do a quick little recap. I was trying to get the dust shield off, but I think what I'm gonna have to do is pull the hub out, then unscrew it, because this bolt is stripping. I'll put the other ones back in, so I wouldn't worry about it much. I'm going through using a 15 millimeter to get these bolts out. They might be a 14, but I could not get the 14 to seat on there. So I'm using a 15. I'm trying to use a big impact. I got one bolt out. There's only 3. We're gonna turn the wheel left and right to get in there. Hopefully the swivel's gonna do what I got to do to get this out of here. And then we'll be pretty much ready to take it off and hopefully finish this side up in about 15, 20 minutes. So let's see what we get. That's not gonna work, that's too much. Definitely not. Let's see. That is a tight fit. Might need 2 swivels. 2, count them, 2 swivels. Alright guys, I used a double swivel. Swivel, they got me in there. And that was good. Another bolt down. I probably don't need it, Matt. Honestly. Alright. So all 3 bolts, double swivel, impact rated swivels. Look, there's anti-seize in this. Wow. No wonder they came out. Who did this last? I don't think it was me. Well, if I did, I'd probably put cheap Chinese ones in there. The hubs? The bearing? The bearing?
You put the control on that.
No, I'm talking about the bearing. There's anti-seize on it. Like on the thread.
You have the whole thing out.
Oh, I actually had it out.
Yeah,
oh!
You had it out and we're trying, you were like, yeah, this is bad.
Oh, so I must have done that.
I don't need to turn the wheel anymore.
Nope. Okay. All right, guys, so you'll see where I'm at. I took the 3 bolts out. Again, I used a 15 millimeter. They might be a 14, but a 14 wouldn't fit on them for mine. Again, I didn't get the dust shield out like I wanted, so now I'm gonna try to get this Allen key out for the wheel speed sensor. Worst case is I come back at a later time if I had to replace it if it was bad, but I'm gonna try to get it out and free it of this. Sometimes they're seized in there and they just snap, so sometimes you gotta be prepared. Did your new ones come with them? Sometimes the new bearings already come with them installed, so let me check, because if it's not, I'm just gonna say screw it. So let's check our new part. It has it in there? Oh, sweet. Okay, so our new part actually has a sensor already in it, so I'm not even gonna bother getting that out. I'm gonna snip it and pull it, and we'll call that good, and then I'll have to route it out. But check your new part. If it's already got a wheel speed sensor in there, you don't even gotta screw around with it. I'm just gonna snip it. I'm not gonna waste my time. It's probably gonna snap. I've had to tap and drill so many of these things out. I'm not even gonna mess with it. So cool, awesome, man. Let's move on. I'm gonna snip it, pull this out. I'm gonna clean my hub surface with just a wire brush, put some anti-seize on there. There was anti-seize on the bolts because I actually had to put this back on. Knowing it was bad, I had to put it back on, or thinking it was bad. And I used anti-seize on the threads, and I think that probably saved me. So anyway, I'm gonna get back into it and get this hub out. We'll get the new one in after I clean it, and we'll get through. Guys, I don't know if you can hear it, but like I said, it was making bad noises before. Thanks for turning the fan off, Matt. And it just, you generally want a nice smooth crisp. I'll bring the new one over in a second after I get everything cleaned and we'll show you it. But imagine this amplified, and this is with no weight on it. So Cool, let's get going. All right, so I'm going back to take this off. Oop, they weren't a 10. Oh, that's an 11, that's in the wrong spot. So 10 millimeter, I'm gonna try to take these out, hopefully they'll come. Whew. A little worried about that one. So I can get the speed sensor in there. I didn't think this was gonna come out, but it did. Put that back together. This did come assembled, but I took it off because I thought it was going to save me from having to take that off. But it came off anyway, whatever. They're 10 millimeter bolts for that. Tighten that back in, but not too snug. And let's check behind here. I'm going to take that out. This is the retaining bolt for the sensor. I'll get to that afterwards. So, check this out. We're going to use this nasty aluminum, I thought it was graphite, aluminum anti-seize. This stuff gets everywhere. It's a mess. I hate it. It's going to last forever because I've had this bottle for like 10 years. Just want to go around where it's going to touch. So in case this cheap Chinese bearing craps out, I don't have to fight to get it out in 3 months. Not that it's going to fail, Matt, but you know, you just never know with this stuff. Surprised you didn't buy a Moog. We'll do that for those too. Okay. I'm holding it. Just squirt some grease on there. It needs to go on easier. I mean, it's a sealed bearing, so this doesn't actually do much, if anything, for the bearing. Look at these squirts everywhere. What the fuck was that? Whew. What a mess. Oh, yes. And now the heat shield has to go back in. Oh God, I'm glad I didn't forget that. So, well, how's that gonna? So I gotta put the, okay, I gotta put the hub on and then, that's a really stupid setup. I don't like that. Okay. Well, there's already anti-seize on these. I'm not going to add any more. I'm going to go around and get them all started. Hi guys, so I've got the new hub in, I've got this tightened in, we did anti-seize. I got my brake sensor started. It's got to go further up here. I think it's going to be easier to get to it from the top to unplug it and plug it in. So I'm just going to set it over there for now. We'll go back and get that later, but I don't feel like pulling my splash guard, or maybe I do. Is this just, what do we got here? No, it's still further up there. We'll do it from the top. Just not maybe, but. So now I got to get my heat shield back in. Dust shield back in. Now that that's all good to go, you can choose not to put this back in if you want. Doesn't really matter. I mean, yours might be so rusted it's not worth fixing or putting back on. If your car's in really good shape, maybe take the time to paint it, but I don't know if this one would be worth painting it. So we're gonna put all this back in, tighten it up. Now I'm gonna put my rotor back on, my caliper bracket. We've got new pads for this because we figure while we're in here we'll do new pads. And then we'll be in pretty, hopefully good shape. We're gonna have to look up the torque specs specifically for this axle nut. We're not gonna impact that on, as it'll just probably cause problems on the bearing. I mean, if we knew the bearing was already bad, it wouldn't really matter, but with the new bearing, we wanna follow to spec as much as we can so that we don't have to redo it. Hit stop and start. guys, sorry if you missed something. I got the caliper bracket bolted on, put anti-seize on the hub behind the rotor. I did compress my caliper. I just recently bought a 2-piston pad spreader because I was tired of using the cheap tool. That seemed to work really well with it. Now I'm putting the brakes back on. I did clean the hardware. I wire brushed it. The pads we got didn't come with hardware. It doesn't really matter. These are stainless steel. Clean them up, they'll be fine. And then, you know, I put a little bit of grease on like the ears of the pads so they slide. And you'll notice these should slide very easily. You shouldn't be having to like force this back and forth. If you do, something's wrong, but they should be able to move smoothly. Not be slapping around, but they should be nice and smooth. And please, when you do this, if you're new to this, just make sure that this pad material is facing the rotor. Everybody makes a mistake, and that's a crappy one, because then you're getting new rotors too. And we think our rotor's fine. So, slide this in the back. Don't get any grease on the rotor surface. Yeah, that looks very good. All right, so I also do the ears of the caliper. I do the face of the piston. And you can use whatever brand you want. This is Ceramic Extreme. I don't know, it's whatever I saw on Amazon. I thought it'd be cool to try. Last time I used like synthetic. I mean, I don't really care. I think it all does the same thing. People didn't do it a long time ago, but here we are. So with this one, you have to put the top in first. You may have to push these pins back a bit. Make sure they do slide freely. They do. I'm not going to mess with them because we were recently in here. Slide it up and then slide it in. It should pop in just like so. Now that's in. Put these back in. There we go. Make sure the pad was not lined up. Get my flashlight. Alright guys, so we've got everything in so far. I have put the washer and the nut back in. I've got all my brakes tightened back together, greased up. Again, we did new pads. I'll probably spray some brake cleaner to make sure I don't have my greasy fingers on anything. I just want to recap that for this job, I did not have to remove my upper ball joint, my lower ball joint, my tie rod. All that stayed intact, which means you won't need an alignment, okay? And I think your phone's ringing in there. And all I had to do was take all my brake pieces off, take out the 3 bolts on the back, which are 15mm fit for me. Maybe they're 14s and I got rust buildup. I can't tell. Please check. Don't just assume 15. Hammered that off of there, clean the face of the spindle, put some anti-seize and put it all back together. And then the only thing else was the speed sensor that we had to route through and take the dust shield off. So pretty simple. You know, we've used a 10mm, I think a 19mm, a 6mm Allen key size, and the 14s in the back. Anyway, very simple. So I'm going to get this ready to torque this down because that's what I haven't done yet. I'm going to look up the specs real quick. I'll show you how we can hold this in place and torque it. And then we'll go ahead and show you the ABS sensor, put the wheel on, this side will be done. So let's check it out. Hi guys, so we looked up the specs for the 2nd gen Durangos, for the 4-wheel drive. It's saying it's 180 foot-pounds. My tool actually goes up to about 140. That's gonna beep at me and scream and say that we're good. So we're gonna do that, just a little bit more of a turn. I mean, you could do an 1/8 of a turn and go up 40 pounds, 50 pounds. So we'll be real careful. The end goal here is not to impact this on at the end, at least not on any high setting, or else you're going to end up crunching and pressing the bearing in and pinching it. So if you want to do this and we're not using impact, you're going to just get the what are we calling these, Matt? The wheel studs, all good, and then push down on this. If you've got a buddy, which I kind of have a buddy. Maybe Matt, you can push down on that. It's going to keep beeping. After it beeps, just go a little bit more. Keep going. Keep going. Yeah, it's not getting any tighter. Okay, so that's beeping at 140. Then we're going a little bit over that to make sure we're good. Again, I know this thing is snug as a bug, but if you don't get this on there, let's say you didn't put this this nut on there, what can actually happen is as the brakes are pushing the rotor and the wheel, it'll actually take it and dismantle it from the hub completely, and this wheel will just fly off. So it is important that you've got that nice and tight. So we're going to put our existing cotter pin back in. It's still fine, it's in good shape. Again, we put a new one in recently when we had this off. So we're going to bend it around, do it whatever way you want, both to one side, one to each side. It's dealer's choice there. Okay, last thing I'll show you is the wheel speed sensor. I'm just gonna put the wheel on there and then we'll be good to go. All right guys, so we just finished the other side. I finished the other side before I decided to come up here and do this. I found our connection right here. I'm not sure if this is exactly where it's supposed to be, but we're gonna unplug our old ABS sensor for this side. Throw that to the side. We've got our new one sitting right down here. We're just going to connect that ever so nicely. And then I'm not actually sure exactly where it clipped before. Maybe you guys got a better spot. Because the bolt for ours is broken, and I don't actually see where it would have screwed in. You know what, I'm going to put it behind here, Matt. That looks a little better, right?
Well, there was the intake here.
Oh, so maybe it bolted to something on the
To
intake.
the box.
All right, so I'm going to put that right there. I mean, granted, this is not perfect because I don't know where it went before. Whatever. Anyway, it's connected. I'm going to zip tie it just for safety, but I don't know where else to put it because it's kind of missing some pieces here. But that's all good to go. You know, we torqued everything down. We got the wheel back on. We're going to zip tie this. Maybe your car is a lot cleaner and you don't got to do this, but if you do, just make sure it's out of the way and has some slack so it doesn't get pulled anywhere. So thanks guys. Now be sure to like, subscribe if this helped you out. We got a bunch of videos coming. I work on a lot of Dodges because we think Dodges are great vehicles, and everybody I know has them, and then we work on them. So thanks again. See ya.